It actually worked.
Man, so much to be proud of for this football team. What they have done. Bringing
What could be in
this team
2024.
back to the city of Detroit.
My
You're trying to
goodness.
fine-tune a team that can win a Super Bowl.
A great year, a great time to be a Lions fan. My fellow Lions fans, we are approaching what may be the most anticipated season in Detroit Lions history. Coming off a 12-5 season and a trip to the NFC Championship game, they have even loftier goals for 2024. They've bolstered their offense, revamped the defense, and the organization has all the continuity necessary to win their first Super Bowl. Thank you so much for returning to the channel. I'm your host, Johnny Gaz. Thanks for coming back for another video. We're going to introduce a new series today. In this video, I'll give a general outlook on the Lions' current roster. We'll look at any holes, issues, or concerns we have entering next season, and give a general outlook prior to the preseason and the new NFL year. We may do this at several points throughout the 2024-25 NFL season. We'll call it the Johnny Gaz Sports State of the Lions. Let's go. Before we dive into it, make sure to hit the like button. It's the best free way to help out the channel. We're going for 200 likes on today's video. Hitting that subscription button and the notify bell is the best way to make sure you don't miss any future videos here on the channel. If you'd like to become more involved, hit that join button on any one of my videos, and I'll walk you through all the different levels and options you have to become involved with the channel. I appreciate all of your support. Talking Lions football and interacting with you guys has been the absolute best. Thank you so much for your time. Let's dive into today's topic. Let's start the State of the Lions address by recapping the offseason, talk about where the Lions stand currently. Entering this offseason, the Lions organization extended both GM Brad Holmes and head coach Dan Campbell through the 2027 NFL season, which I think is a no-brainer. Back in 2021, when these two were hired, this was a completely different Lions organization. In 3 short years, they have completed this turnaround, killed SOL, and developed a new culture for this Lions organization. They've developed a new strategy of drafting, cultivating, then rewarding their pillar players, which this offseason, they made big contract extensions to quarterback Jared Goff, wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown, and tackle Penei Sewell. All 3 of those gentlemen have proven themselves to be pillar players and guys that the organization can build off of, not only for 2024, but beyond. They also revamped their defensive secondary for the 2nd straight season. They hit on big-time free agent pieces, they made a trade, and they also double-dipped in the draft and revamped their cornerback room, all in an effort to make sure that their secondary is not a problem as they head into 2024. We'll talk about that in detail as we get into the roster overview. So why don't we jump into it? We'll take a look at the current Lions roster. We'll talk about any holes that still need to be filled. We'll look at strengths, weaknesses, and really give an overview as we head towards the 2024 NFL season. Here is the Lions' current depth chart as noted by ESPN. We'll start with the offense. And what I'm not going to do here is deep dive every single player on this roster. Again, we've done several videos on the channel really looking at every single position group this offseason. So if you're looking for more of a deep dive into an individual player or a particular position group, definitely check out the archives on Johnny Gaz Sports. There will be a video there for you that will give you that detail that you're looking for. But let's start at the top. Any good winning team or Super Bowl has to have a winning quarterback. As we said, as we entered this State of the Lions address, the Lions re-signed Jared Goff this offseason to the next mega quarterback contract deal. And again, we've gone through the details of that contract, but this, of course, puts Jared Goff on the upper tier of paid quarterbacks, and I think he's earned that over the past several seasons. He's been the calming, steady presence for the Lions, and although he still, I don't think, has necessarily earned the respect as far as where he ranks in the elite quarterback status discussions, he certainly has proven that he can win here for the Detroit Lions. Behind Jared Goff, you have Hendon Hooker, which again, we did a detailed deep dive into Hendon Hooker and his current situation. But I think the thing with Hendon Hooker right now is that because he had kind of the redshirt season last year coming off the injury. He's still learning the NFL game. He's still having to adjust. He's having a little issue with his footwork, as from what we're hearing out of the OTAs and some of the offseason workouts. And he's going to need a little bit more seasoning time to get used to the NFL game and determine what kind of quarterback he's going to be. I think before this offseason, many people looked at Hendon Hooker as the potential solution at quarterback. Now that Jared Goff, in my opinion, has really proven himself that he's the guy, this is really more about, can Hendon Hooker develop into a number 2, a solid backup that the Lions can rely on if Jared Goff goes down, or could maybe work him into some different style offensive packages that utilize his different skill sets. Right now, there's a lot of seasoning that still is left to be done. So as it stands, Hendon Hooker really hasn't even supplanted himself as the number 2. In the third quarterback position, they still have Nate Sudfeld, who we know has been around the organization for several seasons. And although you do not want to rely on Nate Sudfeld to go win you football games, he at least knows the playbook and knows the Lions organization, and of course will be a part of the quarterback room. Now let's talk about the running backs. And again, we did a strong deep dive into what I deem to be the best running back duo in the entire NFL in David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. What an explosive 1-2 punch. Now, I really expect Jahmyr Gibbs to take another step here in 2024. I did a video about the breakout performers that I expect for this season, and I think Jahmyr Gibbs will be a huge part of that. He had almost 1,000 yards rushing and 10 scores in his rookie season. And I think that was a small bite of what he really can do here in the NFL. In 2024, I expect him to be more involved in the passing game and may even get more opportunities on the ground and start to truly become the Lions' number 1 running back. But until then, they still have David Montgomery. And then behind those two, you have solid veteran presence in Craig Reynolds, who really proved himself throughout last year and into the playoffs that he can come in when necessary and get you some tough yards, score you a touchdown in a short yardage situation, and really was a vital piece there towards the end for the Lions. The Lions also drafted sort of a split safety hybrid type running back player in Sione Vaki out of Utah, and I think they're very excited about what they can get out of him. It's sort of the unknown as far as what he really can contribute to the running back room, but I think even past that, if he doesn't, make an impact on the running back side of things, I think he certainly will make an impact on special teams. He might even get himself more involved again in the safety room. So it'll be interesting to see how the Lions actually use Sione Vaki in 2024. So let's talk about the wide receivers. And I think if there's any position group on the offense where there may be some questions, this is it. But starting at the top with Amon-Ra St. Brown, we know the organization re-signed him to that mega deal, making him one of the highest paid wide receivers in the NFL. And the guy has truly earned it. He's a team captain. He's possibly your hardest worker and will continue to be so heading towards the future. If you're watching the Netflix series Receiver, you also see a little bit of the crazy built into Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's the ultimate chip on your shoulder type guy, and he'll play through injuries and really do whatever is necessary to get to the goals that he's set for himself. What a guy to have in that room as your leader. Now, behind him is where the questions come into play. We made a detailed video about if Jameson Williams is able to step up in 2024, how that then creates an offense that may be unstoppable, and really what could be the best offense in the NFL and the thing that takes the Lions to that next level. A lot of questions still surrounding Jameson Williams. He has still not yet given a ton of production for the Lions, so they will really need him to take the next step. They lost Josh Reynolds this offseason, which is almost 60 to 70 receptions that they're going to have to make up, and Jameson Williams needs to be a big part of that. Behind Jameson Williams, you have guys like Khalif Raymond, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Antoine Green, Traquan Smith, and then you have ultimate depth pieces like Tom Kennedy, Maurice Alexander, Darius Fountain, Caden Davis, Isaiah Williams, undrafted free agent guys that they brought in that will compete for roster spots. But really, it's what will happen behind Amon-Ra St. Brown that will be the biggest tell for 2024. Is it Jameson Williams? Or really is that second target in your tight end group? And that's when we start to talk about Sam Laporta, who had a historic tight end rookie season And if he at all is the player he was last year, or, it would be amazing to think he takes a step up in 2024. He's turned himself into one of, if not the best tight end in the NFL. And he is garnering a ton of attention from people around the league who are saying just that. Sam Laporta is what I've deemed to be the most important piece to the Lions offense because of the things that he does in the receiving game, as well as an inline blocker. So they can do a lot of scheming around him and that tight end group. Behind Sam Laporta, we know the Lions also re-signed Brock Wright, and they have James Mitchell and Shane Zylstra as backups. So they're very set at tight end. We just made a video outlining the best offensive line in the NFL. We talked about the 5 starters. Of course, left tackle Taylor Decker, left guard Graham Glasgow, center Frank Ragnow, the new right guard Kevin Zeitler coming in from Baltimore, and of course, the best offensive lineman in the NFL, right tackle Penei Sewell. They truly have the best starting 5 offensive line in the NFL. And really the question is, can they hold up the depth behind them in case there are injuries or in case they need to reshuffle that to make sure they don't lose a step? Again, we talked about that in detail in our most recent video, so definitely go take a look at that. Offensively, I think the Lions are pretty set up, pretty stacked. The only true question is that second wide receiver or second offensive option that they'll use in 2024. But I think with Ben Johnson at the helm, Dan Campbell being, a part of the offensive scheming, I really believe the Lions will have one of the best offenses in 2024 and will be one of the reasons for their success. Now let's focus in on the defense. Let's take a look at this roster. And this is where a lot of the offseason changes have really taken place. And let's start with this. We know with defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn returning, this is his make or break season. Several seasons now they've gotten off to historically slow starts on the defensive side of the football. That has to change in 2024 for the Lions to have the ultimate success. And we know that the defense truly stems off of the engine or the motor, Aiden Hutchinson, at defensive end. And coming off of his best season, he is certainly one of the best young edge rushers in all of football. And with the other additions now on the defense, can he take another step up in 2024, turning himself from a Pro Bowler into an All-Pro and maybe even being an outside shot at Defensive Player of the Year? And I do make that argument in another video here on the channel, so definitely go take a look at that. Now, on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson is where the help was truly needed, and the Lions went out and signed edge Marcus Davenport, who had played with the Saints as well as the Minnesota Vikings, but he has been injured several seasons now in a row, and the question is the production that he's had when he's been healthy really who he is, or do we continue this string of injuries? And the Lions have proven that they're willing to take shots on guys that have an injury history with high upside, and that certainly is Marcus Davenport. So behind those two guys, as far as on the edges, you have a guy like John Kaminsky or Josh Pascal, guys that they've relied on in the past. In Pascal's situation, they're kind of hoping he takes the next step up. I believe he'll be entering his second or third season with the Lions. You also have a guy like Mitchell Agudi or Matthew Betts, who they signed out of the Canadian Football League, who they're hoping to kind of pull from and get a little bit out of, but he's having to adjust to the NFL game. So we'll see if he's able to contribute on the edge as well. Now we have to also look at outside linebacker James Houston, who we know at the end of the 2022 season was on an historic sack rate. He had the injury bug here in 2023 and really didn't get back and acclimated enough to reintegrate himself into the defense enough to know what we had. So what do we then get out of edge James Houston on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson? And is that the impact that the Lions are looking for? So there is a lot of questions on both edges outside of Aiden Hutchinson. And did the Lions then get enough help to allow Aiden Hutchinson to shine? Part of that process also involved what the Lions did at the defensive tackle position. Again, we did a detailed spotlight review on defensive tackle OLine McNeil, so definitely go check that out. But the Lions also signed Cincinnati Bengal defensive tackle DJ Reader, who is another guy coming off of 2 injury-laden seasons, but has a ton of upside and truly, if healthy, creates a destructive force in the middle of the Lions' defensive line combined with Alim McNeill. Now, behind those guys, you have Broderick Martin entering his second season and Levi Onwuzurike, who was drafted all the way back in 2021, has been injured and hasn't really given the Lions exactly what they had hoped for, but at the end of 2023 started to shine and show a few plays here and there to make it think like he could be a part of this changeover for 2024 as a defensive tackle. Behind those gentlemen, the Lions drafted Mekhi Wingo out of LSU. They also have Kyle Pecco and Chris Smith, who will be competing for playing time at defensive tackle. Now let's take a look at the linebackers. I think one of the groups for the Lions that really isn't discussed much here this offseason. It starts with Alex Anzalone. He's really the leader on defense. He's given the Lions several good seasons there at middle linebacker and has done a great job in sort of cultivating the young talent behind him, which we know Jack Campbell, who the Lions took in last year's draft in round 1. That pick was really lambasted for its value, but I think Jack Campbell has a lot of upside and amazing potential. And we just came off a video not too long ago talking about him as the uncaged Lion. And I think he may be a big piece to this Lions defense in 2024. You also have Derek Barnes on the strong side linebacker, who really took a step up at the end of 2023, started to play much better football than he was giving earlier on in his career. So those three guys will be the three key pieces at linebacker. Behind them, you have Malcolm Rodriguez, the Cowboy, Ben Neiman, who they brought in, Jalen Reeves-Maven, who has had multiple stints with the Lions, and they really like him not only in the linebacking crew, but especially on special teams. And then behind him, you still have guys like Deron Gilbert, and then James Houston as the outside linebacker / edge. So that kind of lays out the linebacking position there for the Lions as we head towards 2024. Now let's get into the secondary. I think the biggest changes happen in this position group over this offseason. Let's start with the safeties. I think we know in the free safety slot, we sort of have penciled in Kirby Joseph, who over the last several seasons has gotten better and better and better. But let's talk about the strong side safety. And that's where Brian Branch comes into play. Drafted the year before, he had a fantastic rookie season. Has the injury ankle concern this offseason, but should be cleared up before the start of the preseason. And the Lions expect a lot out of him in 2024. He was primarily their nickel cornerback option in 2023, but the Lions and their coaching staff have come out and said they really would like to transition him more into the strong safety role and get him from 3/4 of the defensive snaps all the way to 100% of the defensive snaps. And in my opinion, and again, I explained this in the video we did about Brian Branch not too long ago, I expect him to be a huge piece to the Lions defense and could be one of the better safeties in the league in 2024. Behind those two guys, we talked about Ife Melifonwu and the great end of the season he had in 2023. I expect that to continue, and he'll be a big part of the safety room next season. Then you have CJ Moore, Lawrence Strickland, Brandon Joseph, and Chellan Garnes, all competing for a roster spot behind those guys at safety. Now, it's the corner room where the true revamp happened, and this is for the second straight season. This year, the Lions brought in cornerback Carlton Davis on a trade from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to sort of solidify their number one cornerback position. They also brought in and signed cornerback Amik Robertson to sort of fill in that nickel cornerback role. He's coming from the Las Vegas Raiders. And in the draft, the Lions double-dipped at cornerback by taking Alabama's Terrion Arnold and Missouri's Enos Rakestraw. So they have truly reset the cornerback room, and there will be a heavy competition for not only cornerback 1, but CB2 and beyond. More competition in that room should breed more success, and I really think the Lions have done a good job in revamping their secondary for 2024. Now, a lot is left to be said and seen as we get into the preseason training camp, and we'll kind of see how this all works. But with better play in their back end, that should lead to more success up front, more help for Hutch, and vice versa. So I really believe the Lions have put themselves in a position where the defense should take the next step in 2024, and we'll talk about what that means for them overall this season. And, of course, we got to hit on the special teamers. We know Jack Fox is one of the better punters in the league. I think underappreciated, truly. but resets field position pretty much anytime he touches the football. So we are certainly feeling really good about ourselves at punter. Now, the kicker position is where it gets interesting. Last year, between the two kickers, Michael Badgley ended up sort of winning the job and being that kicker towards the end of the year and into the NFC Championship game. We know the Lions, though, really didn't have the ultimate trust in Michael Badgley, and Dan Campbell's aggressive style, along with maybe a lack of trust in a kicker, led the Lions to bringing in Michigan Panther and Arkansas kicker Jake Bates, who we know has a huge leg, but can he transition that into the NFL and ultimately win the job in the preseason? And that should be interesting to see how that plays out. And we'll see how the Lions reset their kicker as we head into 2024. So what is the state of the Detroit Lions as we head even closer to the 2024 NFL season? I think the sky is the limit. And as a Lions fan, it's almost impossible for those words to come out of my mouth, but that is the truth. They've done everything possible this offseason to revamp their secondary, to improve their defense, to hopefully give the defensive line, Nathan Hutchinson, the help that they need to take the next step in 2024. The offense truly is not the question. They've been a top 3 offense the last several seasons, and I expect that to hold true in 2024. The real question is, have they done enough on defense? Have they added the right pieces in the secondary and up front on the defensive line to really make that difference and allow them to take the next step to get to a Super Bowl in 2024? The hype around this team is real. The culture change around this team is real. Same old Lions is dead, and the Lions are heading towards their first Super Bowl in the organization's history. There's a lot of good to come in this 2024 NFL season. I plan on doing a State of the Lions address several times this season, perhaps one just before the start of the regular season. We'll definitely do one midway or at the bye week, and then we will hopefully do one right before the start of the 2024-25 NFL playoffs. It should be a fantastic season, and I cannot wait to spend it with you guys here on the channel. Thank you so much for coming along for another video. Make sure to hit that like button if you dig the vibe and what we did here today. Hitting the subscription button and that notify bell is the best way to make sure you stay informed and don't miss a video here on Johnny Gas Sports. I want to thank you guys so much for the true support. I really have a passion for what I'm doing here. It brings me so much joy, and I love bringing you guys Lions content and discussing it with you. The interaction on the recent videos has been so much fun. Thank you so much. More than anything, I want to make sure you take care of your mental health. That's the biggest thing, and I want to make sure you come back for future videos here on the channel. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sure I will see you guys very, very soon.